The Tuesday afternoon that changed everything started with my sister Charlotte calling while I was reviewing quarterly projections at my kitchen counter. 7 years of grinding my way from entry-level analyst to senior operations manager at the consulting firm, and I could finally see the path ahead clearly. My laptop screen showed the Barcelona opportunity I'd been chasing for 18 months. Everything was falling into place. Rachel, Charlotte's voice carried that artificial sweetness she'd perfected over 34 years. Need to discuss something crucial. You sitting down. My older sister had mastered the art of transforming her personal crises into family-wide emergencies. I minimized my spreadsheet, already sensing what was coming. Michael and I just had our offer accepted, she rushed forward without waiting. 6 bedrooms, completely renovated, in that gated community near the Riverside Academy schools. She let that sink in before continuing. But we've hit a small snag with the down payment. I stared at the calendar pinned above my desk. My Barcelona start date circled in red 17 days away. The work permit had taken 4 months to secure. My apartment lease termination was already negotiated with my landlord. Every detail meticulously planned. What kind of snag? Though my gut already knew. We need $43,000. Exactly $43,000 to close. She paused strategically. Dad mentioned you've been stockpiling money. Said you had around $85,000 saved up. My jaw clenched. My father had zero right sharing my financial information, but that battle could wait. Charlotte, that money represents 8 years of sacrifice. I skip vacations. I drive a 12-year-old car. This isn't random savings, it's for something specific. Oh right, your little European experiment. Dismissiveness dripped through every word. Rachel, I'm talking about a permanent home, an actual investment where Michael and I can raise our family. You're talking about some temporary consulting gig that probably won't even work out. The condescension burned worse than expected. Charlotte had always been the golden child, married at 25 to a surgeon our parents worshipped, working her respectable position at a biotech firm, planning bobbies and mortgages, while I apparently wasted my life chasing professional growth. My contract is already signed, I said evenly. The Barcelona office is expecting me. This isn't some spontaneous adventure. Then postpone it 8 months, maybe a year. Help me secure this property, and once Michael's practice expands, we'll repay you with 12% interest. I'd heard this song before. Charlotte borrowing my graduation money for her honeymoon she'd absolutely pay back. Charlotte taking my car for a weekend trip, returning it damaged with an empty tank she'd definitely handle. Charlotte claiming credit for the presentation I'd spent 3 nights perfecting because she'd certainly mentioned my contribution. I'm not postponing my career for your down payment. Silence stretched between us. When Charlotte spoke again, her voice had dropped to that dangerous whisper. You're being grotesquely selfish. Do you understand that? I'm your sister. Family supports family. But apparently your little sabbatical fantasy matters more than my actual life. It's not a sabbatical. Mom and Dad will be devastated when they hear about this. After everything they've sacrificed for you, and you can't even help your own sister when she desperately needs you. The line went dead. 4 hours crawled by. I attempted to focus on work, but concentration had shattered. Then my phone lit up again. Dad. Rachel, he said, skipping pleasantries. Charlotte called us hysterical. She explained the house situation. Did she explain she wants over half my life savings? She explained that you're refusing to help your sister secure stable housing for her family. Your mother is beside herself. We raised you better than this. The disappointment in his tone transported me back to childhood. Every time Charlotte's achievements were celebrated, while my accomplishments earned polite nods. Every time her problems became family emergencies, while my struggles built character. Dad, I have commitments, signed contracts, a career opportunity that could transform my entire trajectory. And Charlotte has a family to consider, he countered. She's building something permanent, something meaningful. You're chasing consulting contracts across Europe like some college backpacker. The comparison landed exactly where intended. At 29, I was still treated like the irresponsible younger daughter whose ambitions were cute, but ultimately frivolous compared to Charlotte's conventional life path. I'm not giving her my savings, I said, surprised by my steady voice. Then you better reconsider your priorities. Because if you can't support your family when they need you, don't expect us to welcome you back when your impulsive adventure implodes. The call ended. I sat frozen for several minutes, phone still pressed against my ear, listening to nothing. Then something shifted. Not anger exactly, but crystallizing clarity I'd never experienced before. I opened my laptop and pulled up the Barcelona contract. Reading through it again, that flutter of excitement I'd been suppressing under family guilt resurfaced. The position was perfect, leading a team of analysts for a groundbreaking expansion project, implementing cutting-edge methodologies, earning nearly triple my current salary with generous relocation benefits. My phone buzzed. Charlotte texting. Dad says you're being impossible. Last chance to do the right thing before I withdraw my generous offer to repay you. Her generous offer. As though she was doing me a favor by proposing to maybe eventually return money she felt entitled to take. I texted back, no. Then I opened my airline app and bought a one-way ticket to Barcelona, departing in 4 days instead of 17. The change fee cost $900, but watching the confirmation process felt like breaking through the surface after drowning. My phone rang instantly. What the hell, Rachel? You can't just... I can actually, and I did. I leave Saturday. You're making a catastrophic mistake. When this falls apart and you come crawling back broke and humiliated, don't expect any of us to help. I wouldn't dream of it, I said, ending the call. 90 minutes of blessed silence. I started my packing list, researched Barcelona neighborhoods, emailed my new supervisor about my earlier arrival. She responded enthusiastically, mentioning they could use me for preliminary work before the official start date. Then Dad texted, "Co-sign Charlotte's mortgage or don't bother coming back. Your mother agrees. We're united with your sister." I read it 3 times, each pass revealing new layers of manipulation. They needed my signature, which meant Charlotte's finances were worse than admitted. Bad enough that she required a cosigner with my credit score and savings to qualify at all. Co-signing meant complete liability. If Charlotte and Michael defaulted, their debt became mine. My credit would tank. My savings could be seized. The Barcelona opportunity wouldn't matter because I'd be financially shackled to my sister's decisions indefinitely. My hands trembled as I typed. I'm not co-signing anything. If losing my family is the price for living my own life, I'll pay it. His response was instant. You're no longer welcome in this family. Don't contact your mother. She's too distraught to hear your voice. Something shattered inside me, but instead of collapse, it felt like a prison door finally breaking open. Sudden freedom, sudden warmth. I opened my laptop and began executing a mental checklist I hadn't realized I'd been compiling. First, I reviewed every financial account. My savings showed $87,350, more than Dad had quoted to Charlotte, which meant he'd been deliberately inflating my assets to pressure me. Checking account held another $9,400. Investment portfolio at $28,700. Then I discovered the problem. 8 years ago, when I'd been 21 and Charlotte was planning her wedding, I'd added her as an authorized user on my premium credit card to help her book vendors. She'd promised it was temporary, just until her credit improved post-wedding expenses. I'd completely forgotten about it. The card now showed a balance of $8,234. Recent charges included designer purchases, 5-star restaurant bills, and a luxury spa weekend. All within the last month, right when Charlotte would have been preparing her pitch for my savings. My phone vibrated continuously. Mom's number, Charlotte again, unknown numbers that were probably extended family being mobilized for the guilt campaign. I ignored them all and called my credit card company. I need to remove an authorized user immediately and dispute recent charges, I told the representative. While on hold, I opened my bank's website and discovered something worse. Charlotte was listed as a beneficiary on 2 of my savings accounts, not joint ownership, but positioned to claim the funds if something happened to me. The setup dated back 6 years, another favor I'd granted and forgotten. Another way she'd embedded herself into my financial life. The credit card representative returned. We've removed Charlotte Morrison as an authorized user. Regarding the disputed charges, we'll need documentation. She used the card without my knowledge or consent after I refused her a loan request, I explained. The representative's tone shifted, becoming more sympathetic. She initiated a fraud investigation and temporarily reversed the charges pending review. Next, I called my bank. Removing Charlotte as beneficiary required simple forms, which they emailed immediately. I completed and returned them within minutes. Then I went deeper. Charlotte had my login credentials for a streaming service we'd supposedly split for years. That email address matched my primary email, the one connected to my banking, investments, my entire digital footprint. I'd been meaning to change it, but kept procrastinating, never imagining I'd need military-grade security against my own sister. I changed every password, every security question, every recovery method. I enabled two-factor authentication on accounts that had been operating on trust alone. Each change felt like sealing windows I'd left open for years, never realizing how exposed I'd been. My phone showed 31 missed calls by 11 p.m. I silenced it completely and kept working. I contacted my investment broker, adding additional security protocols. Voice verification required for any transactions. No beneficiary changes without in-person verification and government ID. The overnight representative sounded concerned by my urgency until I explained I was protecting assets from family members with access to my personal information. That's actually more common than you'd think, she said gently. Your accounts are completely locked down now. Finally, around midnight, I opened my email and drafted a message to everyone in my immediate family. I'm relocating to Barcelona for an international consulting contract. I will not be co-signing Charlotte's mortgage, contributing to her down payment, or maintaining any shared financial connections with family members going forward. All accounts have been secured. This decision is final. I wish you all well. I added my new professional email address, the one they didn't have, and specified my personal email would be discontinued. Then I hit send and closed my laptop. Sleep seemed impossible, but exhaustion pulled me under around 3 a.m. I woke at 7 to my phone vibrating despite silent mode. The screen showed 68 missed calls, 47 text messages, and 19 voicemails. I made coffee first, then sat down to read. Charlotte's texts evolved from furious to desperate to threatening throughout the night. 1:23 a.m. You vindictive bitch. I can't believe you canceled everything. We needed that card for closing costs. 1:52 a.m. Michael is livid. You've destroyed everything. The house deal will collapse because of you. 2:34 a.m. Dad's right. You're immature and spiteful and you'll die alone with your pathetic career. 3:17 a.m. Please, Rachel, please, we're sisters. I'm begging you to reconsider. 3:56 a.m. Fine, keep your precious money. But don't come crying to us when Barcelona turns into a disaster. Dad's voicemails were arctic. You've made your choice. Don't expect invitations to family gatherings. Your mother is shattered. I hope whatever you're chasing is worth losing everyone who loves you. Mom left one message, her voice thick with tears. I don't understand how you could be so heartless to your sister. She's always admired you, and this is how you repay her devotion. That last one almost cracked my resolve. Almost. Then I remembered being 15, working weekends at a bookstore, saving for a laptop for school. I kept my cash in a lockbox in my closet. One morning, $400 vanished. Charlotte had taken it for concert tickets, and when confronted, Mom had said, "She's your older sister. Family shares everything." I never got that laptop until I could afford it myself 2 years later. The coffee tasted bitter, but I drank it anyway, feeling the caffeine sharpen my focus. 3 days now before my flight. 3 days to finish severing ties, to prepare for a life where my family's manufactured emergencies were no longer my mandatory crises. Around 9 a.m., Charlotte called from Michael's phone. I answered, curious what new angle she'd attempt. "Rachel," Michael's voice, smooth and diplomatic. "Look, things got overheated last night. We're all just stressed about the house. Can we meet for lunch and discuss this like rational adults? There's nothing to discuss. My decision is final. I understand you're upset, but canceling the credit card during our closing process was excessive. Charlotte's been sobbing all night. She genuinely didn't realize those charges would upset you. She charged over $8,000 without asking, Michael, while simultaneously demanding $43,000 more. How does that seem reasonable to you?" His pause stretched long enough that I could hear Charlotte whispering urgently in the background. "She thought the card was still designated for family use," he said finally. "She was trying to furnish our future home, make it perfect for when we have children. On my credit with my money, after I explicitly refused to fund your down payment." My voice stayed level, which seemed to unnerve him more than anger would have. "Michael, I genuinely hope you two figure out the house situation, but not with my financial backing. You're really going to let your sister lose her dream home over this. Charlotte is 34 years old with a husband and dual incomes. If you can't afford this particular house, buy something less expensive. That's what responsible adults do." I hung up before he could respond. The next 2 days blurred together. packing, forwarding mail, negotiating the lease termination with my landlord. Mrs. Chen was surprisingly supportive when I explained I was leaving for Barcelona earlier than planned. She'd lived in Madrid for 15 years in her 30s and spoke fondly about Mediterranean life and the courage of reinvention. "You're doing the brave thing," she said, agreeing to a reasonable termination fee. "Most people spend their entire lives just thinking about it." Each evening, my missed call count climbed. Various cousins, family friends, even Charlotte's college roommate whom I'd met maybe 3 times. Everyone recruited to convince me I was making a terrible mistake, destroying family bonds over money, betraying the sister who'd always supported me. On the second day, my cousin Marcus showed up at my apartment unannounced. I opened the door to find him holding coffee and wearing an apologetic expression that immediately put me on guard. "Before you slam the door," he said, "I'm not here to lecture you. Can I come in for 5 minutes?" Against my better judgment, I let him inside. He surveyed the half-packed boxes and the growing donation pile. "You're really doing this," he said, sounding impressed rather than judgmental. "I really am." Marcus set the coffee on my kitchen counter and leaned against it, arms crossed. "Your dad called my mom, asked her to talk sense into you through me. He painted this whole picture of you abandoning the family in their time of crisis, and you came to deliver that message." "Hell no, I came to tell you I think you're brilliant," he grinned. "Charlotte's been a nightmare since we were kids. Remember when she convinced everyone I'd stolen money from Grandma's jewelry box at Thanksgiving? Turned out she'd taken it for some limited edition purse, but I was the one grounded for 2 months. I'd forgotten that incident, but the memory surfaced now. Marcus's protests of innocence, Charlotte's tearful insistence she'd seen him near Grandma's room, the family division that lasted through New Year's. "Why didn't anyone believe you?" I asked. "Same reason they don't believe you now. Charlotte's always been genius at playing the victim while creating chaos." He picked up his coffee. "Anyway, I wanted you to know not everyone thinks you're the villain here. My mom doesn't either, for what it's worth. She just won't contradict your dad publicly." After Marcus left, I felt marginally less isolated. But the calls continued, each from someone who'd accepted Charlotte's version without question, who couldn't fathom that the quiet, responsible younger sister might have legitimate grievances. My college roommate, Amanda, called that evening. Unlike the others she opened with, "Tell me your side." So I did. I explained the years of small thefts that became major debts, the expectation that my success existed to subsidize Charlotte's lifestyle, the credit card fraud, the co-signing demand, and the ultimatum from my parents. "Christ," Amanda said when I finished, "and they're painting you as the monster." "Pretty much. Rachel, I've known you for 11 years. You're the person who budgeted for 8 months before buying a used couch. The idea that you'd refuse to help family over petty selfishness is insane." She paused. "For whatever it's worth, I think you're making the right choice, and I'm jealous as hell that you have the guts to actually do it." We talked for another hour about Barcelona, about the contract, about the life I was building. By the time we hung up, some of the accumulated doubt had dissolved. The third day brought an unexpected visitor. Michael's older brother, David, whom I'd met perhaps 4 times at family events. He caught me in the parking garage as I was loading boxes into a friend's truck for storage. "Rachel, wait," he called, jogging toward me. I turned, wary. David had always seemed decent, but family loyalty ran deep. "Look, I'm supposed to be here convincing you to reconsider," he said, slightly out of breath. "Michael asked me to appeal to your sense of family duty, all that, but," he hesitated. "But I've been watching my brother and your sister's financial disaster for 3 years now, and I warned him months ago they couldn't afford that house." This was news to me. I'd assumed Michael was the stable one, the responsible husband grounding Charlotte's impulsiveness. "Their credit is destroyed," David continued. "They've maxed out 7 cards. They're barely making minimum payments, and somehow they convinced themselves that a massive mortgage was the solution. When Michael told me they'd lined you up as a co-signer, I told him you'd be crazy to agree. He didn't mention that." "Of course not, because I also told him that if they defaulted, they'd destroy your credit and probably your career prospects." He met my eyes directly. "You dodging this bullet is the smartest thing you could have done. I'm here to tell you that, not to guilt-trip you." After David left, I sat in my nearly empty apartment, feeling vindicated but also unsettled. How many other family members privately agreed with me but publicly supported Charlotte out of obligation or fear of conflict? That night, I received an email from Charlotte herself. No subject line, just several paragraphs of raw manipulation. Rachel, I've spent the last 3 days trying to understand how you could be so cruel. We're sisters. We shared a childhood, shared parents, shared dreams. And the first time I asked for real help, you turned your back on me. Do you remember when you were 17 and wanted to go to that writing workshop in Vermont? Mom and Dad said it was too expensive, but I used my college graduation money to help pay for it. I sacrificed for you. I've always sacrificed for you. Now I'm asking for the same support, and you're acting like I'm some stranger trying to scam you. The credit card charges? I was furnishing our house. A place where you'd always be welcome, where your future nieces and nephews would have grown up knowing their aunt. But instead, you've chosen a job over family. You've chosen money over love. When you're sitting alone in some foreign country with nobody who actually cares about you, remember that you made this choice. I read it twice, then opened my documents folder and found the writing workshop information from 12 years ago. It took some searching, but I eventually located the financial records my parents had kept. The workshop had cost $3,500. I'd earned $2,100 from my bookstore job. Mom and Dad had contributed $900. The final $500 had come from my grandmother, not Charlotte. Charlotte's graduation money had gone toward a luxury vacation to Cabo, a detail I remembered clearly because she'd posted hundreds of photos while I was working double shifts that summer. She'd rewritten history so thoroughly that she might actually believe her version. Or maybe she'd always known the truth and counted on me not checking. I didn't respond to her email. There was nothing to say to someone who would lie that brazenly and expect it to go unchallenged. The morning of my departure, I woke at 4 a.m., too restless to sleep. I made coffee and stood by my apartment window, watching Philadelphia's pre-dawn streets, wondering if I'd feel nostalgic later for this view, this city, this life I was abandoning. I didn't feel nostalgic. I felt free. My phone buzzed with a text from Mom. "Please don't go. We can work this out. Family is everything." I stared at that message for a long time. Family is everything. The phrase that had governed my entire existence, that had been wielded like a weapon every time I considered prioritizing myself. But family wasn't everything. Some families were toxic. Some families demanded you set yourself on fire to keep them warm. Some families loved you conditionally, only when you were useful, compliant, willing to sacrifice your dreams for their comfort. I typed back, "Family should want what's best for each other. This is what's best for me." Then I silenced my phone, gathered my luggage, and headed for the airport. The realizations kept coming during the ride, each one a small earthquake rearranging my internal landscape. Charlotte had never actually been there for me. Not when I'd worked 3 jobs to avoid student loans, while she partied through undergrad on our parents' money. Not when I'd spent my 26th birthday alone in a hospital during emergency surgery, because she'd been too busy planning her anniversary party. Not when I'd been passed over for promotion last year, and she'd responded with, "Well, maybe if you were more likable like Michael." The night before, I'd allowed myself one moment of doubt, sitting in my empty apartment surrounded by suitcases and boxes for storage. I'd considered calling Charlotte, apologizing, finding some compromise that would restore family peace. Then my phone had rung. Unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Rachel, this is Aunt Patricia, my mother's older sister, a woman I'd always respected for her directness." "Hi, Aunt Patricia. I'm calling because your mother asked me to, but not for the reason she thinks." Patricia's voice carried dry amusement. "She wanted me to convince you to help Charlotte with this house purchase. Instead, I'm calling to congratulate you on your new position and ask if you need anything before you leave." The kindness caught me completely off guard. My throat tightened. "Thank you," I managed. "Your mother means well, but she's always enabled Charlotte's entitlement. Your father, too. They've spent 3 decades treating you like the responsible one who doesn't need support because you're so capable, while Charlotte gets rescued from every consequence." She paused. "I watched you grow up apologizing for existing while your sister demanded center stage. If you don't leave now, you'll still be apologizing at 50. Tears spilled over before I could stop them. "I'm scared," I admitted. "What if they're right? What if I regret this?" "Then you regret it in Barcelona with an international career and your savings intact," Patricia said firmly. "Much better than regretting it in Philadelphia, broke and resentful, wondering what you could have become." We'd talked for another hour. She told me stories I'd never heard about my mother and Charlotte's relationship, patterns apparently replicating across generations. By the time we hung up, something had settled in my chest. Not certainty exactly, but the absence of that desperate need for family approval that had governed my decisions for 29 years. I boarded the flight at 6:47 p.m. the next day. My phone stayed in airplane mode. Barcelona welcomed me with golden Mediterranean light that felt like the universe's way of saying I'd made the right choice. The apartment my new company had arranged overlooked a narrow street lined with cafes, their outdoor tables filled with people speaking rapid Catalan and Spanish, their laughter rising toward my fourth-floor windows. Everything felt electric with possibility. The first week passed in a whirlwind of orientation meetings, team introductions, and intensive language immersion with a tutor the company provided. My supervisor, Alina, was demanding but brilliant, pushing our team toward innovative solutions while trusting our expertise. She introduced me to her professional network across the city, and suddenly I was having dinners with executives from 8 different countries, discussing projects and possibilities I'd never imagined accessible. 2 weeks in, I finally checked the phone number I'd kept active for emergencies. 59 new voicemails. I deleted them without listening, but I did read through the texts, watching the evolution from anger to bargaining to eventually resigned hostility. Charlotte's final message, sent 4 days after I'd left. The house fell through. Michael's parents had to co-sign a different property in a worse neighborhood because apparently you weren't the only person who refused to help us. I hope you're satisfied. You've destroyed our future for your selfish adventure. I felt something reading that, but it wasn't guilt. It was clarity. Their backup plan had involved multiple people refusing to take on their financial risk. I wasn't the villain. I was just the first person who'd said no. A week later, I received a Facebook message from someone unexpected, Jennifer, Charlotte's maid of honor from her wedding. We'd never been close, but she'd always been kind at family gatherings. Rachel, I hope this doesn't seem intrusive, but I wanted to reach out. Charlotte's been posting constantly about what happened, painting you as this selfish monster, and it's not sitting right with me. I've known Charlotte for 16 years, and I've watched her pull similar stunts on other people. You're just the first person who actually said no and stuck to it. We ended up video chatting that evening. Jennifer told me stories I'd never heard. Charlotte borrowing money from mutual friends and never repaying it. Charlotte taking credit for group projects. Charlotte manipulating situations to ensure she always emerged as either victim or hero. There was this one-time senior year, Jennifer said, when Charlotte convinced 4 of us to pool money for a beach house rental for spring break. We each put in $500. Then she discovered the place was already booked and kept our money to save for next year. We never saw that money again, and there was never a next year. Why did you stay friends with her? I asked. Jennifer's expression turned rueful. Honestly, because being on Charlotte's good side was easier than being on her bad side. She's charismatic and fun when she wants to be, but cross her, and she'll run a campaign against you that makes high school bullying look subtle. She paused. I'm not proud of that, but watching what she's doing to you now, how she's mobilized your whole family against you, it finally made me see how toxic that friendship was. I've been slowly distancing myself. That conversation shifted something fundamental in me. I'd spent weeks second-guessing myself, wondering if I'd overreacted, if maybe I should have found some compromise. But Jennifer's perspective confirmed what I'd suspected. Charlotte's behavior wasn't about me specifically. It was a pattern, and I was just the first person in our family brave enough to break it. The work in Barcelona intensified as I moved past orientation into actual project management. Our team was developing a revolutionary supply chain optimization model for a client expanding into Eastern European markets, and the complexity was exhilarating. Alina pushed us hard, but celebrated our wins enthusiastically, and I found myself working longer hours than ever while feeling energized rather than drained. 3 weeks into the project, Alina pulled me aside after a successful client presentation. Rachel, you have exceptional instincts for this work, she said. The way you identified those distribution bottlenecks, the client specifically mentioned how impressed they were. Thank you, it's a fascinating project. I want to be transparent with you about something, Alina continued. When we hired you, we saw your resume and were confident in your technical skills, but we'd had challenges with some American hires adjusting to the international environment. I had concerns about whether you'd thrive here. My stomach tightened slightly. And now, she smiled, now I'm wondering if you'd consider extending your contract beyond the initial term. We have projects lined up in Amsterdam, Prague, and potentially Singapore. You'd be leading larger teams, taking on more strategic responsibility. Essentially, I'm asking if you'd be interested in making this permanent rather than temporary. The offer was everything I'd hoped for but hadn't dared expect so quickly. I told Alina I'd need time to consider, but internally, I already knew my answer. The life I was building here felt more authentic than anything I'd left behind. That evening, I walked through the Gothic Quarter, watching tourists and locals mingle in the plazas, and called Amanda. They offered me a permanent position, I told her. Multiple international projects, significant raise, leadership track. Rachel, that's incredible. Are you going to take it? I think so, but it means fully committing to this life. No more pretending this is temporary. No more safety net of returning to Philadelphia if things don't work out. Do you want to return to Philadelphia? Amanda asked pointedly. I thought about my empty apartment, my family's conditional love, the weight of expectations I'd carried for nearly 3 decades. No, I really don't. Then stop treating this amazing opportunity like you need permission to be happy. Take the job, build the life, send me pictures of Barcelona sunsets, and make me jealous. I accepted Alina's offer the next day. Signing the contract felt like the moment on the airplane when the wheels leave the runway. That instant of committed flight, where turning back becomes impossible. My new permanent status required paperwork, visa extensions, setting up local bank accounts, finding a long-term apartment. Each administrative task felt like putting down roots, anchoring myself to this new reality. I spent weekends apartment hunting, eventually finding a place near Parc de la Ciutadella with tall windows and a tiny balcony where I could drink morning coffee and watch the neighborhood wake up. The day I signed the lease, I took a photo of the empty living room, sunlight streaming across hardwood floors, and posted it to social media with a simple caption, "Home." Within hours, comments flooded in from college friends, former colleagues, acquaintances from Philadelphia, all congratulating me. But there were also comments from family members, cousins, my uncle, even some of my parents' friends' variations of beautiful, so happy for you. They felt pointed, deliberate statements of support despite the family drama. Charlotte didn't comment, but she sent a direct message. Cute apartment. Must be nice spending my house money on yourself. I blocked her immediately, surprised by how little hesitation I felt. Around this time, I started therapy with an English-speaking psychologist Alina recommended. Dr. Martinez specialized in expatriates and cultural adjustment, but our sessions quickly evolved into unpacking family dynamics and the guilt I still carried. You speak about your family's needs as though they're objective facts, Dr. Martinez observed during our 3rd session. But needs and wants are different things. Your sister wanted your money. She didn't need it. But the house, there are thousands of houses. If they couldn't afford that specific house, they could have chosen differently. Their want became framed as a need to manipulate you. The sessions helped me see how thoroughly I'd been conditioned to prioritize others' desires over my own well-being. How family comes first had actually meant Rachel's needs come last. How what I'd internalized as selfishness was actually just basic self-preservation. Weeks turned into months. The consulting project exceeded every expectation. Our team delivered ahead of schedule under budget, and the client immediately negotiated an extension. Alina offered me a substantial raise and a pathway to partnership. I learned Spanish with increasing fluency, made friends with colleagues and neighbors, spent weekends exploring the Catalonian countryside. I dated casually, nothing serious, but discovered what it felt like to have conversations where my career ambitions were admired instead of tolerated. 7 months after leaving Philadelphia, I received an email from Aunt Patricia with the subject line, "Thought you should know." Inside was a forwarded news article about a local woman arrested for insurance fraud. Charlotte. The details were sparse, but apparently she and Michael had attempted to stage a burglary at their rental property to collect on an inflated contents policy. The investigation had uncovered previous suspicious claims. I read it 3 times, feeling oddly detached. The sister I'd grown up with felt like someone from another lifetime, someone else's memories. Patricia's note at the bottom said simply, "Your parents are mortified but still blaming you somehow. Thought you'd want to know. You dodged quite a bullet." I replied, "Thank you for keeping me informed, and thank you for the conversation before I left. It changed everything." Another 3 months passed. Christmas approached, my first completely alone, and I discovered I felt excited rather than melancholy. I'd been invited to 9 different celebrations by various friends and colleagues. I chose a dinner hosted by Alina and her wife, where we ate too much and laughed until midnight, and I felt more at home than I had in decades of obligatory family gatherings. My phone rang while I was walking home through festive streets, my breath visible in the unusual cold. Unknown number with a Philadelphia area code. I almost declined, then curiosity won. "Hello, Rachel, it's Mom." I stopped walking. People flowed around me, couples and groups heading toward late-night celebrations. "How did you get this number?" "Patricia gave it to me. Please don't be angry with her," I begged. She paused, and I could hear her gathering courage. "Your father doesn't know I'm calling." "What do you want, Mom?" "I wanted to wish you Merry Christmas," her voice cracked. "And I wanted to apologize, for all of it, for taking Charlotte's side without hearing yours, for treating your ambitions like hobbies while elevating hers, for raising you to believe you were selfish if you weren't sacrificing everything for family." I stood there, phone pressed to my ear, struggling to process. "What changed?" I asked finally. "Charlotte's legal troubles forced me to see things clearly," she said. "The fraud, the lies to the insurance company, the financial mess she and Michael created, it all looked so familiar because I'd watched her manipulate and scheme her whole life. But I called it ambition. I called it needing support," she inhaled shakily. "And I called you selfish for refusing to enable it. Your father still disagrees. He won't admit it to you, probably not for years, but he knows." We talked for an hour. She asked about Barcelona, about my work, about my life with genuine interest I couldn't recall receiving before. I told her some of it, cautiously, testing whether this change was real or temporary guilt. Before hanging up, she said, "I don't expect you to forgive me immediately or maybe ever, but I needed you to know that I see you now, who you actually are, not who I projected onto you, and I'm proud of you." I cried after we disconnected, standing on a corner in Barcelona's Gothic quarter, tears freezing on my cheeks. But they weren't tears of regret. The Barcelona project extended into a permanent position, then a promotion. I built a life I'd never imagined possible, professionally fulfilled, financially secure, surrounded by people who valued me for my capabilities rather than my compliance. Charlotte eventually reached out through a carefully worded email 11 months after I'd left. No real apology, but an acknowledgement that things got complicated, and a suggestion we might reconnect when tensions cooled. I responded politely, but without commitment, and let the correspondence fade naturally. Dad never called. That hurt sometimes in quiet moments, but the pain was clean, not the infected wound of ongoing manipulation, but the healthy ache of a cut that's healing properly. 2 years after leaving Philadelphia, I stood in my Barcelona apartment reviewing a proposal for a project in Singapore. My team was being invited to consult on an international expansion, even larger than the one that had brought me here. 3-year minimum commitment, extraordinary compensation. My phone sat silent on the counter. No missed calls from family demanding my time, my money, my acquiescence. No guilt about choosing my path. I accepted the Singapore offer that evening, then called Aunt Patricia to share the news. "You sound happy," she said. "I am, actually, genuinely happy. Your mother will be pleased to hear that. She asks about you constantly. Tell her I'm thriving. Tell her I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. Because I was. The girl who would have sacrificed everything to keep family peace no longer existed. In her place was a woman who'd learned that sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is refuse to set yourself on fire to keep others warm." The 68 angry calls had felt like the end of my family. Instead, they'd been the beginning of my actual life. Now I'm writing this from my Singapore apartment overlooking Marina Bay, preparing for another week of challenges I've chosen, obstacles I'm equipped to handle, and success I've earned rather than inherited or demanded. Charlotte got her house eventually, something smaller, more affordable, funded by Michael's parents under strict conditions. She and I exchange cards on holidays now, superficial pleasantries that acknowledge our shared history without requiring reconciliation. And me, I'm building something extraordinary, not just a career, but a life defined by my own ambitions rather than someone else's expectations. Sometimes people ask if I regret cutting off my family so drastically. I tell them the truth. I didn't cut off my family. I cut off the toxic patterns that were slowly drowning me. The family members who truly loved me found their way back, respecting my boundaries. The ones who only loved what I could provide for them, well, their absence feels like oxygen after years of suffocation. From Philadelphia to Barcelona to Singapore, each move has taken me further from who I was expected to be and closer to who I actually am. And that journey, it's worth every one of those 68 angry calls and then some. If you're watching this and recognizing your own story and mine, know this: choosing yourself isn't selfish. Sometimes it's the only way to survive, and sometimes survival is just the beginning of truly living. Thank you for listening to my story. If it resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts below. And if you're facing similar family pressures, remember, you deserve to build a life that makes you proud, even if it doesn't make everyone else comfortable. Until next time, this is Rachel, signing off from Singapore, living proof that sometimes the best revenge is simply refusing to play the game at all.